Howdy, my name is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Today we're going to look at the top 10 cooperative games. Now, what makes a good cooperative board game? A good cooperative board game has to have this one big thing, and that's the players that are playing have to feel like they are in control of what they're doing while contributing to a larger whole. I try to veer away from games that can be played mostly solo and try to focus on games that really reward that interaction with the other players, but you still have, as an individual, the ability to contribute to the whole. So I think that's huge for these cooperative games. Without further ado, let's begin with number 10, Codenames Duet specifically. So in Codenames Duet, you play back and forth turns playing on the same central board. In Codenames, you're going to be giving one-word hints in order to link these words that are in the center of the table. Now, the duet version of this, the cooperative version, is so good because it has both players constantly figuring out what they're going to be doing at the same time, and they're interacting with the same pieces to ultimately complete that objective of getting all of the correct words. So I love the way that everybody is playing basically all at once. There's no real downtime here, as you can always try to think of something for the next turn, and I just love the interactions between the players, and depending on who you're playing with, if you know them well, you can go for specific maybe inside knowledge that you two know specifically, or you can go for if you're playing with somebody brand new, you can try to find common ground between certain things. And whether you win or lose, it's a great experience. You have a lot of fun. I'm not very good at this, but man, if I don't love coming back to this game and trying my best, and it's super engaging. So that's my number 10, Codenames Duet. Wonderful cooperative game. The next game we're going to talk about is a new one to my library, and this one is going to be Sleeping Gods. In Sleeping Gods, you play the crew of the Manticore, who's found your entire crew in these misty lands, these waters, these extremely strange areas, and your job is to explore, and that's the core of the game. You're exploring and trying to find totems to get home, and the cooperation in this game is wonderful. You're always invested in when it's somebody's turn because they're the person that's in charge of the captain who's ultimately going to be leading you places. Each player has control of their own resources, these command tokens that they can use to activate specific things, and you have a lot of shared resources, so based on who wants to do what, you are going to have to cooperate about what you want to use. In addition, each player will be assigned a certain number of crewmates, that way it's all evened up, and with these large amounts of crewmates, you have people that you're in charge of and duties that you can fulfill as an individual crew member. And I think that really strengthens the cooperative experience in Sleeping Gods. It's the best one so far from this year, 2021. Fantastic game. That's Sleeping Gods, my number 9. My number 8 is a much larger game, and this is Kingdom Death Monster. So Kingdom Death Monster here is a huge game where you're going to be taking control of a group of survivors. So you have a big settlement. So don't get too comfortable with those characters. You're going to have probably maybe 10, 15, 20 of them, and they are probably going to die all the time. So with these groups of characters, you're going to be sending 4 out at a time in order to go hunt for creatures. You'll strip them of their belongings and then bring them back to the settlement in order to improve your community there. So I really love the way that this game handles the cooperative nature. You have 4 characters, and you can split up control as you see fit. It works really well with 2, it works really well with 4, and you get to take your character, and you get to decide what to do with them. It's important that you talk to the other players around you, because ultimately you do want to survive and win, but you can pull off some really fun stuff. You can do your own thing, you can specialize in the weapon proficiency you want to specialize, and it's all about the experience. Ultimately, yes, you do want to win, but players can really take the game as they see fit and pursue really interesting paths on their own. So I really like Kingdom Death Monster, and I love the way that you really need to cooperate for these big fights. So Kingdom Death Monster, number 8. Ooh, that's the big one. Number 7 is a deck building game called Marvel Legendary. So Marvel Legendary, it's in a gigantic box, so I'm not going to bring up the whole thing, just got the rule book here. But Marvel Legendary has you playing a group of SHIELD agents, and you're going to be recruiting these Marvel heroes into your deck. And every time you do so, your deck gets a little bit stronger, and eventually you're going to use those heroes to take out a mastermind that's trying to fulfill its scheme. Now, Marvel Legendary does something really well, where each player has their own personal deck, and that's really the biggest strength of this game. Each player is able to customize the deck as they see fit by buying new cards that they want to buy. They get to pick the strategies they want to go after, and use those cool strategies to take down this Nemesis villain. So I really enjoy the customization of this game, and when you start the game up, you get to pick as a group what heroes you actually want to use in the game. So it's really fun. People can pick their favorite heroes, and you could be those heroes, and you can find really fun synergies between it. There's a whole lot of variability, and I think this game is best with smaller player counts because it does get harder as you add more players, because there's going to be less turns for people to build up their decks throughout the game. So I like this game a lot, but I really prefer it with a lower player count. So this is my number 7, Marvel Legendary. Now, inversely to this one, the next game is another deck builder that is as good at any player count, honestly, and this is Heroes of Tenefyr. Heroes of Tenefyr has you playing a group of explorers in a fantasy setting, and you're going to be going through dungeons until you eventually take out a boss. So it has a bit more of a structured path. We're going to be going from dungeon to dungeon to dungeon, but the biggest thing that this game has going for it is the unique deck building system it implements and the really fascinating cooperation that's involved. So the big thing here is whenever you take out a creature in this game, you get that creature as a card in your deck, and I think that's wonderful. Now, the person who does the final blow ultimately gets the creature. So you need to talk amongst the table to see who actually needs the creature. There are different bonuses that you can acquire that allow you to switch cards in your decks with each other, and I think that's really awesome, because you can really decide who needs what and say, hey, I need this thing, help me out. Super cool. I love this interaction in this system. Now, the other really cool thing here is the deck building itself. I love that instead of having just a static hand of 6 cards every turn, you draw 3. And you can dump that as much as you like, but your deck is your life force, so if you run out of cards, you can no longer help in the dungeon, and it's up to your teammate to be able to carry the rest of the team. So you can decide, you can tell the team, hey, can you do this on your own? And you can go out early if you really need to dig for a specific card to help out somebody, but I love that there is that communication, there is that interaction, and it's just a fantastic package altogether. So this is my number 6, Heroes of Tenefyr. Incredible game. Number 5 is Time Stories. Time Stories is probably the best scenario-driven game, I think. It does what it does so well. It's a great storytelling, scenario-driven game. In Time Stories, you play as a group of time agents, and you're going to be going back in time to fix some blip in the time stream, fix it, come back to the real time, and hopefully it worked. So you'll be going on a lot of different adventures. In this one in particular, you're going to be going underwater to try to help something. I don't want to give a lot of any spoilers here, but the biggest things that Time Stories has going for it is the cooperation mechanics, specifically with exploring. And I think that's where this game shines. When you go to a location in Time Stories, it's going to give you a big panorama of cards. And this panorama has all sorts of beautiful artwork, but it also relates to where you are. So say you're in a house. You might have one section that is the cupboards, one section that's a person in the house, one section that maybe leads outside of the house, and you pick where you want to go. It's up to you as a player. Once again, that agency is really important. You decide where you want to go. People can go together. You can join with another person, but based on who you are, you may want to think about going to a specific place. But very similarly to a lot of these games, you get to decide. If you want to do that, you can do that. Nothing's stopping you from doing it, and I think it's wonderful. I love that you have a lot of freedom in this game, but when you go somewhere, it's up to you to retell what you found to everybody else. And I love that communication aspect. It's up to the players to communicate what they learned, and it's also up to the players to communicate about what to do with what we've learned. So I really love the different adventures you go on. My favorite from this series is probably the first one, the Prophecy of Dragons, and I really like Estrella Drive. They're wonderful scenarios. And this one is actually great. I really like the Hadal Project. It's from the new line of Time Stories games, but I think it's a great one to start with if you like the system. So I recommend the base game or Hadal Project if you're going to try to jump into this. But wonderful cooperative game. These are one and done, but lovely, incredible game. The next game we're going to talk about is my number 4, and that is Cthulhu Death May Die. Cthulhu Death May Die takes the idea of this Arkham universe where you are going to be fighting off these giant old ones, and you have to actually kill the old ones. The ritual's complete. You need to take out the giant creature and I guess, save the world. So it's really fascinating as you get to take control of investigators with their own unique abilities. And as you dive further into the adventure, you're going to go a little bit crazy. Every time you go crazy, you get stronger, though. And that is super satisfying. Now, the best part of this game, what makes the cooperation so good, is each player, once again, gets to control their leveling up. They get to decide how they want to increase their stats in order to help the mission, and it's ultimately up to that player what they want to do. A lot of player agency. So I love that in this game. I love that leveling up system. Being able to customize a character in the heat of the game is amazing. Sometimes it can be a nice break after a game, but if you're progressing during a game, it gets you something to be looking forward to, it gets you excited, and the combat system in this game is so straightforward and wonderful. It takes the idea of games like Zombicide and really dials it to 10. It does a great job with how your leveling up escalates the amount of dice you roll, how your abilities will affect your range or your movement capabilities, and each character has their own special level up tree that really makes you feel unique and set apart from everybody else. So I really love Death May Die and the cooperative mechanisms it incorporates. So wonderful game. My number 3 is another large one, and this is Gloomhaven. So Gloomhaven is a huge dungeon crawl game where you have a group of adventurers and you're going to be going out doing quests, essentially. Each quest you go out on, you're going to be trying to fulfill your own private goals. And that's where this game really shines. So each game of this, you have your own specific mercenary. Your mercenary has a goal that he set out on his whole life to do. And it's up to you to be a little selfish. So once again, it's up to you to do what you need to do. Despite this big overarching mission, you get to do what you want. And I love that about this game. In addition, the choices that each player gets to make are very quick, but very meaningful. Every turn you'll be picking 2 cards from your hand and you'll be playing them. And the number that you pick determines how fast you go. So you can cooperate with everybody and tell them one thing and then go off and do another. You can, some mishaps can occur. You can rush for the treasure chest and make sure you're always getting the loot. You can make sure that you're helping the team because you really do need to finish this mission, or you can go for that private objective that you have and you know you want to complete. So Gloomhaven has a lot of options for how you want to play your whole game, how you want to play an immediate turn, and how you want to play, I guess, role play as your character. So I love the gigantic options that Gloomhaven has. So I really like the main game of Gloomhaven more than Jaws of the Lion. I really like the book in the Jaws of the Lion, the Jaws of the Lion standalone, I guess. But the experience of having these overarching goals and the level ups and the unlocking of new characters in the base game, I think is incredible, and I think it's the reason that this game is so good, is that you have a constant reward waiting for you in that unlockable content. So I would recommend this one over the newer one if you think you would like something like this. So I really enjoyed Gloomhaven. I think it's an incredible game. So that's my number 3. Got this big stack of boxes on the left. Oh, there it goes. All right, my last 2 are also in gigantic boxes, so I just left them to the side because I don't really want to carry all that. So I just have rule books. The first one we're going to talk about, my number 2, is Too Many Bones. Too Many Bones takes this idea of a grand adventure and shortens it into a 3, maybe 2, 4-hour experience. Depends how many people you're playing with. It's about an hour per player. And Too Many Bones does this in a wonderful fashion. Each player is in charge of a gear lock. It's a little elf-looking guy, but he's definitely not an elf. Don't get them confused. They don't like that. But you'll have a little gear lock that you will take on your adventure. And every time you complete an adventure and you succeed, you'll get some leveling up points, and you can increase the skills of your adventurers. So you can either buy basic upgrades to increase your attack or defense or health or dexterity, or you can get your own personalized upgrades. And my goodness, the customization of this game is wonderful. Now, it takes the idea of the Death May Die, where you're going to be leveling up during battle, but it moves it to you're having smaller battles, and after each smaller battle you get to level up, which is super nice because you're able to immediately use those cool abilities, but you get time to process what you think might be helpful for the long run. You can determine the length of your scenario, so it really caters to a lot of groups. The amount of gear locks that are out right now are tremendous. You can pick a character that is a bot builder. You can pick a character that is a lab experiment gone wrong. You can be a robot. You can be a healer. There's all sorts of these normal tropes, but also some really cool, unique twists on the fantasy world. And I think Too Many Bones is a great dice rolling game. It's my favorite game in this kind of genre that uses dice as its core mechanic, because even if you miss on your dice rolls, you can use those misses to do something else. That's what the bones are, the mechanic there. You can spend them for special abilities. And I think it's all wrapped up in a beautifully well done and well produced package, because it's the Chip Theory games, so all their components are these nice poker chips and neoprene, and I can't get enough of this game. It's good at pretty much any player count. The more players you play with, inversely to Marvel Legendary, it actually makes the game easier the more you play with. So if you want a harder challenge, this might be a good game to play with just another person. But being able to upgrade and feeling those upgrades immediately have an effect on the game is super exciting, super fun. I love getting to learn to play a new gear lock and taking them out. My favorite, personally, is Duster. She's got this cool wolf that she brings out. Oh, it might be Stanza, though. I like Stanza as well. She's the bard, and she can play songs, and if she gets too angry, she can break her guitar. So I love it. I love all of it. Too Many Bones is a wonderful game. One of my favorites, so that's my number 2 cooperative game. Now, what could beat Too Many Bones as a cooperative experience? This game is peak customization and peak player agency without being bogged down by any long player turns. You're never going to feel like you're not involved in the action. Super exciting, super great theme, super great source material, super great world they've crafted. This is Arkham Horror, the living card game. It takes the nightmare setting here, not a nightmare, the horror setting here. So it's like a pulpy horror setting, and it puts you as an investigator trying to solve the mysteries of this world. So you're going to take your crew, and you can play with up to 4. So a lot of variance here. Every player count is good in this game. It scales extremely well. And you're going to be trying to solve this gigantic mystery through a multi-campaign story. Now, these campaigns aren't long. They're max, I think, 8 games long. They can even be as short as 4 campaigns, or you can do a single scenario if you'd like. But the gameplay itself for each scenario is so good and so satisfying. Each scenario tells a story, and the story is wonderfully written. It has great twists, and it even offers a lot of replayability if you go back and replay scenarios, because some of the components will be randomized, so you're not going to get the same story every time, and each story will lead you down different paths. I think Arkham Horror does the cooperation aspect really well. It's going to have you be creating your own deck, and you can play cards on other players. There are cards that specifically support cooperation, which I think is wonderful in the design itself. Your card might reward you if you're with another player, or might give both of you something, or you might be able to protect somebody if you're a guardian. It is so well done. And the game itself is also just built on a really solid system. You have a deck of cards that you're going to be creating yourself. At the end of every level, you're going to have experience that you can level up your deck with. And once again, it's that excitement of getting to use that card you just got and looking for victory points as you play the scenarios while not losing sight of actually winning the scenario. You have your own selfish purposes, potentially, because maybe you want to stay in and you want to find stuff so that you can get maybe these special unlockables throughout the game. There's just a lot to love in Arkham Horror. So much player agency. Everybody is really trying to survive, and that really, man, it just spurs that cooperation in a way that most games dream they could. So Arkham Horror is the best cooperative game in my opinion. I love it. So that's my number 1. So I would recommend this to any player that likes cooperative games. Now, the core game itself, I would not recommend just that. If you are going to get into this game and you think this sounds like something that you would enjoy, I would recommend you get the core game and one of the deluxe cycles. I would recommend the Dunwich Legacy, so the very first deluxe cycle. This offers a great experience into the game. It offers some very straightforward mechanics and really can get you an idea of what this story can be. It also has some great cards for upgrading your decks and cool investigators with great deck building abilities. Now, after that one, I would recommend the Dream Eaters. It offers smaller scenarios that pack a great story, and they give you a bunch more XP every challenge, so you're able to level up your deck a lot faster and start using cooler cards faster. And I think that's wonderful. So I can't recommend this enough. That's my number 1, Arkham Horror, the living card game. So that's my list. What did you think? Do you have any games that you enjoy that are cooperative? What makes a good cooperative game for you? Let me know down in the comments below. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thanks so much for watching. SideGame Strong.